Well, welcome to the Rural Realtor Podcast, where we talk about all things country, especially those things that have to do with country and rural real estate. Joining me today is my partner, Danicia Duncan. Welcome, Danicia.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Bill.
You know, I thought today'd be fun if we talked about something really glamorous and exciting in country life. Danicia, what do you think?
Sure, and I think it might be septic tanks.
Oh, yes. Who doesn't get excited about septic tanks? What could be more fun than that?
Yeah, kind of a stinky subject, huh?
But the reality of it is it's so many people. If you're going to live in the country, you're going to have to deal with septic systems. But sadly, a lot of people don't know enough about them, and it can be a costly and ugly, disgusting problem if you don't know how to take care of it.
That's a fact. And it just floors me how many people really, truly know nothing about a septic tank. They just don't even think about it. And, you know, why would you? It's buried in the ground. You never see it. So, of course, you don't think about it.
Well, the sad part is sometimes real estate agents don't know that much about them either. And if they're helping you buy a property on a septic tank, that can cause some problems. So we're going to talk today about septic systems and particularly how to protect yourself, especially if you're a buyer and you're thinking about buying a property that's on a septic tank.
Yeah.
So let me give you just a brief comparison or discussion about what a septic tank is. In most cases, what happens is all the waste that comes out of the house, you know, including your wash and everything that goes through the garbage disposal and your toilets, goes into a big tank, typically a great big concrete tank. Not always. Sometimes it's fiberglass. And it sits in there. And what happens, there's natural bacteria in that tank, and everything that's solid gets turned to water over time. And then there's a baffle at the top, and the water then goes out of that tank. Now, where the water goes from that tank can vary. Pretty common around here, it goes into lateral systems, which is just a series of pipes with small holes in them surrounded by gravel. The water from the tank goes into those laterals and just seeps out into the ground. That's what I've got at my house, for example.
Yes.
Another way, though, is if you have a situation where you don't have the ground won't accept water, it won't allow it to seep out into the ground, or you're in an area that's too rocky for that to work, sometimes people will build a lagoon, and that looks just like a small pond, typically surrounded with a fence. And the water that came out of your septic tank now evaporates off, and that's how you get rid of it. I've also seen people just dump the water into sand systems, you know, great big sand systems. So those are some of the things that people do, that the rough idea of how septic systems are set up.
Right. Bill, what would you suggest to a buyer who's buying a house? They're doing their whole house inspection. Is the septic inspection included? Is that just an automatic thing?
No, I'm glad you brought that up. A lot of people think that whole house includes that, but a septic inspection is a totally different deal. You have to have somebody involved who can inspect septic systems, and it typically involves emptying out the septic tank that's there, and that might be 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 gallon tank. It gets completely pumped out. They will put a camera down there to make sure that there's no cracks in the septic tank. They may be more thorough than that. Some places, this will vary by county, and we'll talk about that in a minute, they will have you turn on all the faucets in the house to make sure that there's no blockage between the house and water running into the septic tank, for example. And then sometimes they'll fill up the septic tank and they'll run water to make sure that the septic tank does not start to rise, but rather the water goes out and into the lateral system or lagoon or whatever it is that you have.
Right. And I've seen them go into the house and flush toilet paper down the toilet and make sure that it actually does come into the tank. So
exactly.
Another way to tell if it's blocked or not.
Another thing that they will typically do is they're going to examine the system you got, whether it's laterals or a lagoon, to make sure it's in good shape. If it's in laterals, for example, they're going to walk over the top of where your laterals are in your yard. They're going to check to see that there aren't any bare spots where the grass has been killed because maybe there's a break in the septic tank or the septic laterals, or that it has got clogged up for some reason and the water is surfacing that shouldn't. They will do the same thing at a lagoon to make sure that the lagoon, which is basically a small pond, is watertight, that water's not leaking out of it, that you don't have tree roots that are degrading it that would allow the water to flow into somebody else's creek or somewhere else in the yard. So they will do all those things.
So you said, so the septic inspection is not included in the whole house, correct?
No, it is not. It is a separate thing. And typically, there's two things to think of. One, it's basically a three-part process, or it can be a three-part process. It consists of pumping the tank, doing the inspection of the system and the laterals. Each of those have their separate charge. And then the third one just escaped me for just a moment. Oh, so sometimes these tanks are, since they're buried underground, there'll be a charge for digging down to the tank. So you might have three separate charges in there: the digging of the tank, the inspection of the system, and then the pumping of the tank. Those are three separate charges, and who pays for that is typically negotiated at the time that you make a contract offer. Is the seller going to pay for some of it, all of it, or the buyer going to pay for all of it? That's all subject to negotiation.
Right. And so who would you suggest, or what type of inspector would you suggest to come inspect your septic system?
Well, some places you don't have any choice. Some counties require that the systems be inspected by the county health department. For example, I know it's true in Johnson County, Kansas. On the Kansas side, you have to make an appointment to have them come out. They come out, and you have to have a pumper there to pump out the tank because they want to see that tank empty. So you don't have any choice in some counties, and those are typically the more urban counties. It'll be the county health department that does it. That varies by each county. Now, if the county health department doesn't do it, then whether it's in Kansas or Missouri, they do require that a licensed septic inspector take care of it. Now, typically those people, they also pump tanks, and in some cases, they also install septic tanks and systems. One little piece of advice I've got, if you go to the county, let's say you're in one of those counties that they don't do, the health department doesn't do the inspection, and you'll get a list. These are the people that are licensed. In Kansas, they're licensed by county. In Missouri, they're licensed by the state. So anybody who's licensed in the state of Missouri can inspect in any county that they want. In Kansas, it's done by county. But take a look and see, do they also fix tanks that are broken?
Right.
I personally like to deal with people who only do inspections and don't do installations. There's no incentive for them to find a problem that may or may not exist.
Right. And the conflict of interest, they get out there, and you don't know. As a lay person, you don't know. Is it really cracked? Is it, can you show me the cracks, or are the laterals bad? Can you prove that they're bad? And, I would be more comfortable having an inspection done by a company that doesn't fix them. Well,
I've run into too many examples. I'm not going to explain any of them because I don't want to get sued. But yeah, I think that's very true. Now, the other question that comes up, do I have to have a septic inspection? And the answer to that is that varies by county as well.
Right.
For example, in, say, Johnson County, Kansas, heavily urban county, you absolutely have to have it in order anytime there's a resale. Now, just south of it, in Miami County, Kansas, where I live, no inspections are required at all. You can go to another county, like Cass County, Missouri. They require that an inspection be done, but it's not done by the county health department. So it can, if you're not dealing with it all the time, like you and I are, it can be confusing sometimes. But
and that's, I think, where we come in. We're very versed in this topic, very. And so make sure that you get, if you're in the situation, get a realtor that knows what they're doing.
Exactly.
And knows the rules and knows what to expect. It's because, like we said, most people do not know.
And so when it comes up to the situation, well, this county doesn't require a septic inspection, get one anyway.
Right.
We always, unless it's a new construction and you've got a warranty or something, you should always get a septic inspection, because the problems with septic inspections are never cheap.
No.
I mean, if you need a new tank, a brand new system's going to go anywhere from $10,000 to $15,000. And if any part of that is broken, it's always several $1,000s to repair. So, the cost to get a septic inspection, you have to bear it, or somebody has to bear it. But boy, does it pay off in the long run.
Exactly. Yeah, you just don't want that kind of surprise at all.
Now, you should also know that when they do a septic inspection, they will discover things that are important for you to know. They don't have anything to do with whether or not the system is working. The system could be working very well, but they might discover, for example, that since the property's been subdivided since the system was first put in 20 years ago, part of your lateral system nobody knew is now on somebody else's property.
Right.
So they're going to check and make certain before you buy that house that your septic system not only works, but it's legal. The laterals are where they ought to be. They're not crossing over onto somebody else's ground. And then another thing that I've had happen to people, septic systems are typically sized based upon the number of bedrooms in a house.
Correct. Yeah.
So the house was built 25 years ago, nice 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, and a septic system was installed that was meant to handle a 3-bedroom house. Well, since then, the new owners furnished the basement. Remodeled the basement. They put in 2 more bedrooms down there. Now it's a 5-bedroom house, not a 3-bedroom house. The septic system isn't big enough. Well, if you bought that as is, didn't have it inspected, didn't know that, and then you go to get a building permit, guess what? They're going to say, oh, yeah, we'll give you a building permit, but by the way, you've got to change your septic system. So you want to know that in advance. So you get the septic system inspections not just to see if the system works or not, but also to make certain that it legally fits the new home that you're buying.
And another thing I've seen, so many people don't even know where their septic systems are or their lateral fields. And I believe, well, in most counties, you can call the county and find that out because it's very important, But there's a lot of places where you can't see evidence of it.
No, that's exactly right. We've had that happen more than once, and that comes into play when, we decide to put up a barn or stable for an outbuilding or a detached garage. Well, you don't want to cover up your septic tanks. You don't want to cover up your laterals, and if you don't know where they are, you run the risk of doing that.
Right.
And so that brings up another good point, the reason to have the septic inspection. When you're done, even if it's great, even if it works flawlessly, even if it's perfectly legal, at least you'll know where it is so that when you go to use your land after the fact, you'll know where it's at and you don't make any ugly mistakes.
Right, or if you need to have it pumped, just being able to know exactly where it is just a great idea.
So exactly right. Now, one of the things that I get a kick out is if you don't know, I have learned around here that if you go to Google Earth and you zoom in on that house, and the Google Earth has a capability to back up and see previous years' pictures of that same property.
Right.
If you go to 2012, which happened to be a drought year, if it's a lateral system, almost every lateral system shows up in people's yards because those long green lines of grass where everything else is burnt.
Yeah.
That's where your septic laterals are.
Exactly.
I used that in my own house to figure out where they were one time when I needed. The county didn't have a copy of where the laterals were. They weren't exact. 2012, July, man, perfect example. Tell me where my septic laterals are.
Yeah, I agree.
What else should we let people know about septic systems? If you don't remember anything else in this podcast, yes, get an inspection.
Get an inspection. It's well worth the money. It doesn't always come out to your favor, but it's better now than later.
Yeah, no surprises. If you got any septic issues, you want them to know now and not a year after you bought the property.
Agreed.
Well, is that our podcast for today? Have we covered what we need to do for everybody?
I think that's it. I can't think of anything else.
So I got a question for you. In your opinion, what's the world's greatest rural property website, Danicia?
RuralKC.com, of course. Of course.
So please, if you got any questions about rural property, check with RuralKC.com. Keep following our podcast. We love to do them. And get in contact with us. We answer any questions about country or rural property. And let us know if there's a podcast topic you'd like us to take care of. Danicia, why don't you tell them how to get in touch with you?
Danicia, that's DANICIA at ruralkc.com. Or my phone number is 913-837-0411.
And if you want to get in touch with me, contact Bill Gaughan. That's Bill at ruralkc.com. And my phone number is 913-837-0760. Well, this is Rural KC Real Estate. Bill and Danicia wishing you a great day until the next time.
Bye.